This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Wendy Griffith. We begin with Hurricane Laura barreling towards the Texas-Louisiana coastline. Hurricane experts warn storm surges could reach unsurvivable levels as much as 20 feet, with potential winds in excess of 130 miles per hour. The big dilemma for people in its path: stay home and ride out the storm, or evacuate and risk COVID infection. Heather Sells reports.
It is the largest U.S. evacuation since the pandemic began. And for many, it is a tough decision. Stay at home protected from COVID, or evacuate and risk the threat of infection. On Tuesday, Robert Duffy filled sandbags to protect his home 30 miles from the coast and hoped to stay put.
Hopefully it's not that threatening to people's lives and everyone can handle it. Because with COVID, I'm not certain that everybody's ready to go anywhere.
But in places like Galveston, people are evacuating.
I had to think, what's more important, getting away from the storm, or this COVID thing, and everybody's leaving.
Local authorities are preparing for winds in excess of 100 miles an hour, heavy rainfall, and a storm surge of up to 15 feet. Laura has already killed more than 20 people in Haiti and the Dominican Republic. In the U.S., it could inundate the Texas-Louisiana coastline. CBN News contributor Chuck Holton is standing by in Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Right where I'm standing on the shore of Lake Charles is ground zero for this storm, as the track shows right now. So by this time tomorrow, where I'm standing could be under maybe 14 feet of water.
Currently, we are loading supplies to help people that are affected by the storm.
Operation Blessing is staging trucks in Tennessee, ready to roll as soon as Laura hits, and people need help. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thanks, Heather. And if you'd like to help Hurricane Laura victims, you can give to Operation Blessing's Disaster Relief Fund. Just call the number on your screen, 1-800-700-7000, or you can visit CBN.com. Well, CBN contributor Chuck Holton is in Lake Charles, Louisiana, with more on the hurricane. Chuck.
This is the literal calm before the storm here in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and city leaders are telling people to get out if they can, because this storm is going to be a big one. Now, the mayor of Lake Charles, Louisiana, put a video on Facebook last night telling people that if they have not evacuated yet, that they may not be able to get city services for some time after this storm passes. And that's because they're expecting a huge storm surge, and the city services like police and fire are probably not going to be able to get to people in a timely fashion for some time after this storm.
All right, thanks so much, Chuck Holton on the ground there. And joining us now is WeatherBell's chief forecaster, Joe Bastardi. Joe, what kind of damage are we going to see from this hurricane? I understand it's now a Category 4.
Oh, yeah. We've been thinking that this was going to happen. Rapid intensification on the approach to the coast. This is something we outlined way back in April. This is what to watch for. In 2017, you had all these big storms, but they were weakening coming to land. The hideous idea behind Harvey and Michael, and even the Camille's and some of these other storms, is that they develop within 2 days of landfall. And so you have the multiple forecast problem of track and intensity. But where this hits, it's going to be the strongest storm on record there. I think it's going to beat Rita from 2005. I think it's going to beat Audrey from 1957. And those storms were very, very bad storms in there. Now, Beaumont, Port Arthur is probably going to be on the western side of the storm, so their wind's going to come from the north and northwest, but it's Lake Charles that is going to get that wind coming from the southeast. If you've ever driven through there, you know what that area looks like. Those two big refineries, one Port Arthur and Lake Charles, are going to have a real problem. And then as this continues inland, because of the configuration of the jet stream, even though the hurricane weakens, there's extra energy coming in from the jet stream that will maintain some strong winds on the eastern side. And we may see places like Shreveport, Little Rock, Memphis, Nashville break their they have records for thunderstorm winds, but non-thunderstorm winds gusts in those areas. And, you know, we've got Operation Blessing going on in Tennessee. It may take a day or two before we could get this storm by them, because it's going to come up right up into Shreveport by tomorrow night, Little Rock after that, Memphis, and then Nashville. It will come right over Virginia Beach, what's left of it, it looks like, late Saturday night, head out to sea. It may even gain intensity again, but then be gone after that.
Joe, let's talk about this storm surge. They're talking about it being unsurvivable, 20 feet. Oh. Is this what you're forecasting as well?
Oh, my goodness, yes. It may be higher than that. We're actually a little bit stronger at landfall. We're down at 930 millibars and 145 miles an hour, so it may be a little bit higher than that. But I'll tell you what, if you've ever seen something like this, that's just talking about the rise of the level of water. When you have 30-foot waves or 20-foot waves on top of that, even over Lake Charles, you may see 20 to 30-foot waves over that lake in there because it's a big, wide lake. It's not right on the Gulf of Mexico. So that piles on even higher. So, yes, you have to get out of those areas in there. And you have to understand, if you're hunkered down and you're within 15 feet of sea level, this could be a real problem. One of the I don't know, you want to call it silver lining in the cloud, is where it's making landfall. The area, that area between Beaumont and Lake Charles, there are not a lot of people there, a lot of cattle there. They're actually evacuating the cattle, but it's pretty sparsely populated. Of course, it's a little bit back inland, away from the Gulf Coast. It's not like, let's say, something hitting Miami or Panama City, Florida, or Myrtle Beach. But in this particular case, even well in those areas, and the storm surge rises up in those bays and estuaries because the water can go no place. It's a massive problem. And then the wind that continues a day or two inland, that's going to be a problem too. I think there's going to be a lot of power outages all the way into the Tennessee Valley.
All right, Joe Bastardi, thanks for keeping an eye on it. Hurricane Laura, a monster Category 4. Thank you so much, Joe. God bless.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye. God bless you.
Well, now on to the Republican convention. The Trump family was out in full force last night during the second night of the convention, making the case for 4 more years for their loved one, President Trump.
We all know Donald Trump makes no secrets about how he feels about things. Total honesty is what we as citizens deserve from our president.
This is the fight that we are in right now, and it is a fight that only my father can win.
The president also made several appearances last night, issuing a presidential pardon, as well as taking part in a naturalization ceremony. Tonight, the big speaker is Vice President Pence, who will deliver his acceptance speech from Fort McHenry in Baltimore, and Kellyanne Conway, who announced she'll be leaving the White House at the end of the month. The RNC also dropped a speaker, Mary Ann Mendoza, at the last minute after she tweeted out an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, which she later deleted. And here to tell us more is CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody. David, the convention's halfway over. Give us a rating so far. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's pretty good. You know, look, Wendy, they have done a lot as it relates to not just an uplifting tone, but more than that, human stories. I mean, the first 2 speakers on Tuesday night were a Maine lobsterman, a lobster fisherman. What, should I look it up? I should look it up. I should have looked it up before I came on. A guy from Maine who fishes for lobsters, and a Wisconsin dairy farmer, and they were able to tell personal stories as to why they support this president. We saw a lot about women and Trump as it relates to all of the women that he's hired in his administration. So they're trying to put a bit of a more personal touch on it. I think it's been effective. Look, the Democrats, we know what they were doing last week, right? Orange man bad. That was their big whole thing. But this week, I think the Republicans are saying, look, that has nothing to do with that. It's actually Democrat policies bad. And I think we're seeing quite a bit of that, too.
Well, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is facing criticism for delivering his speech from Jerusalem. What's your reaction to that? What's the big deal?
Well, look, Wendy, can I just be honest with you? It's just you and me talking, right? I mean, we're not like rolling on this. Like, it's not like a live or anything. Look, the Democrats and liberals say that this was a violation of the Hatch Act. And if you line up 10 people on the street, they would be the what act? No one cares about any of this. This is all inside baseball. They think the Trump administration flouted ethical guidelines by basically mixing politics and administration duties when Mike Pence was over there as Secretary of State in Israel. Of course, the pushback here from the White House and by other administration officials is that, look, Mike Pompeo did this on his own accord, personal, used no State Department resources. So, look, this is just such an inside baseball story. I don't think anybody cares.
Well, it's interesting to hear your thoughts on that as well. Well, what can we expect from the speakers tonight, and will we hear more from President Trump?
Oh, we're going to hear from President Trump, all right. Now, in terms of how we hear from him and when we hear from him, we don't know. For example, the pardon and the naturalization ceremony were both surprises at the last moment. My sources are telling me there are going to be more surprises tonight. So we will see exactly what the president is up to. Obviously, the vice president, Mike Pence, is the big draw tonight, but Kellyanne Conway, too. She's leaving the White House, so we want to wait and hear what she has to say. And one last speaker I'm looking at, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, you know, the congressman from Texas who has been very outspoken for Trump, but here's the key. He has been the one guy that has been able to lay out the COVID-19 defense of Trump on all of this. He does a very good job of it. My guess is we're going to hear that tonight.
Absolutely. He is very popular. David Brody, thank you so much for your insights. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Wendy.
And be sure to tune in to Faith Nation this evening for more on the convention and the latest from our nation's capital. California lawmakers are racing to pass a bill that would use taxpayer dollars to fund transgender health care services for children and adults. The bill provides grants to hospitals and clinics that provide hormone therapy and gender reassignment surgeries and are affiliated with organizations led by transgender activists. Some California doctors are speaking out against the bill. They're worried about medical risks for children, which include infertility. They're also concerned about a loss of treatment control for healthcare professionals. Dr. James Grislia, a San Diego neurologist and California State Director of the American Academy of Medical Ethics, spoke with CBN News.
Explicitly says that the funds are going to be going to trans organizations who will then be working with medical clinics that they choose. So the transgender organizations will be in the driver's seat on this, on the treatment of the children. And the problem with that is that up to 85% of children who think that they were born in the wrong body, they'll actually change their minds by the time they get to adulthood. So we don't think that it makes a lot of sense to treat a temporary problem with hormones and surgery that cause permanent harm.
Amen. Well, the 2020 California legislative session ends at the end of the month. That's why they're racing this bill through. Please pray about that. Well, now to the coronavirus crisis, a major change to the CDC COVID-19 guidelines. They say if you have no symptoms, you don't necessarily need a test, even if you may have been exposed. Meanwhile, worrying new signs that reinfections are real and on the rise. Just one day after the first confirmed case of reinfection in Hong Kong, reports of patients in Europe who have recovered from COVID-19 now coming down with a second case of the virus. This as the world is approaching 24 million confirmed cases. Still ahead, it's been 75 years since World War II ended, and one author is coming up with a way to pass on history. We'll tell you about it right after this.
Having sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
Well, this year marks the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. And as time passes, author Bob Curry is concerned it's a story we may not fully share and pass on to young people. So he's written a novel to share a largely unknown true story of how the Nazis tried to starve the Dutch into submission. It's called Hunger Winter. Curry checks in with Studio 5 to give us an inside look at the life behind the book.
So, Rob, why a book on World War II for 4th through 8th graders?
So God's hand was all over this. He was preparing me for this long before I knew it, which is the way I think God often is. My dad was a World War II vet, and he instilled in me a love of World War II stories. Then my 7th grade son came home from school one day with a 2-page story he'd written about World War II. He said, "Dad, look at this." And, you know, it was pretty good. By that point, I'd already published 2 books. So I said, "Hey, why don't you and I write a book together, not to publish, we'll take it to the copy center, just a father-son fun project." "Oh yeah, Dad, that would be great." So I said, "I'll write the first chapter." "Sure thing, Dad." So I wrote the first chapter, and by the time it was his turn, he was more interested in being a teenager than writing a book, which is fine. But by that time, I'd gotten hooked on the story.
Set the scene for us. We know it's a fictional story set in World War II. Set the scene.
So the story centers on 13-year-old Dirk. First, his papa leaves to fight with the resistance. Then mama dies in the middle of the night. Then he's woken in the middle of the night, young Dirk, by a friend saying, "The Gestapo has just ambushed your sister and they're coming for you next. You have to leave home right now." So he gathers up his things in just a few minutes. He leaves home in the dead of night, in the winter. He's got his little sister asleep in his arms. He's got his pockets stuffed with food, and his heart is heavy with a dark secret. Kirkus reviewed it. They said it was a gritty but hopeful thriller.
I like the sound of that, gritty but hopeful. What are the lessons young people can learn from what our world experienced with World War II?
My motivation in writing the book was to draw young readers to the beauty of the gospel. And Jesus, who was the greatest storyteller, greatest teacher ever, used stories to teach a lot of his lessons, right? So I think a good story has to grab the reader's interest, but it has to do more than that. It has to touch the heart. So in this story, one of the lessons that readers will see illustrated through the developments of the story is that even in hard times, with prayer and help from other people, we can make it through. The main character asks a very difficult question that a lot of us have asked ourselves at some point, and that is, when times are hard, how can I still believe in God? How do people still believe in God? And the elements of the story and a trusted advisor give them a very powerful answer to that question. So those are a couple of things I hope that readers will get from the book.
What was it that your father did to inspire your love for World War II stories?
My dad, when you love someone and they're enthusiastic about it, it's contagious. So I'd encourage parents out there to share whatever you love, share it with your kids. Don't force it down their throat. If you're all into music or art or whatever and your child doesn't take to it, don't force it on them. But I think it's natural that many times children and teenagers will come to love what their parents love. So that's what I would say my dad did for me.
Rob Curry's Hunger Winter is available wherever books are sold. And for more uplifting entertainment stories, you can catch the all-new edition Studio 5 on the CBN News Channel tonight. It begins at 9:30 Eastern Time. After the break, a rare discovery by Israeli teenagers that leads back to the time before Jesus walked the earth.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Israeli teenagers at an archaeological site have uncovered a rare find. The volunteers came upon a hoard of gold coins that are more than 1,000 years old. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us the story from Jerusalem.
The 24-karat gold coins date back to the Abbasid Islamic Caliphate that stretched from Persia to North Africa. The treasure, discovered by two Israeli teenagers, came while excavating a site in the middle of a neighborhood in the center of Israel.
Today, when they came to work, when they started digging, they saw a glimmer in the ground. And as they continued excavating, they found a large gold hoard in a small jar.
The youths volunteered during their summer holiday before beginning Army service. Oz Cohen is one of the youth.
It was amazing. I dug in the ground, and when I excavated the soil, saw what looked like very thin leaves. When I looked again, I saw these were gold coins. It was really exciting to find such a special and ancient treasure.
Archaeologist Galit Tal says finding gold is rare.
We don't find many gold hoards in archaeological excavations. When we do find them, we don't find individual coins mostly. We usually find them in hoards because gold being gold, people wanted to keep it close, and so they kept it with them.
The hoard contained 425 gold coins.
The way the gold was buried was obviously done by someone who was in a rush to leave, and so he buried it in the ground. He covered it with the intention of returning to pick it up later, and as you can see, obviously, he never did.
This dig is in what would have been a large industrial area that included wine presses and pottery kilns.
The unique thing about this gold hoard is that it shows us a lot about international commerce of that time period in the area, which was on the rise and prospering, as opposed to the commerce in Europe at the time, where the use of gold actually started dwindling.
From the initial examination, experts say most of the coins date to the end of the 9th century BC. The stash weighed nearly 2 pounds, which would have been a lot of money back then.
It's difficult to tell what you could buy with the coins, but most likely with one coin you could buy some sort of large farm animal like a cow or a horse. And with a hoard of this size, it's likely that could also buy a large house or mansion in this time period.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Wow, a mansion. Well, up next, a new high-tech way to experience a major event in biblical history, the building of Noah's Ark and the flood. We'll have that story when we come back.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
The Millsburg Falls man coming.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
The Ark Encounter in Williamstown, Kentucky now has a new high-tech way to experience Noah's Ark. The Ark Encounter is a replica of the Ark built according to the dimensions given in the Bible. It contains 3 decks of exhibits. Well, now visitors can wear state-of-the-art virtual reality headsets and sit in special effects motion seats that move and vibrate, as the guests can see Noah and his crew building the Ark, watch the animals enter the massive ship, see the dramatic beginning of the flood, ride in the Ark as it floats on water. Wow. And see the ship at rest on Mount Ararat. And you can read more about the experience, including new exhibits at the sister attraction, the Creation Museum. Wow, that sounds really fun. Well, that is on CBNnews.com, by the way, if you want to check it out. And that's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. We hope you'll join us next time. From all of us here, have a great day, and God bless you.